But I'm sad because that's a big part of the game, and the amount of spin bowling overs in this series has been way, way, way too low for the satisfaction level of the common fan.
Well, we are here in the Ladies' Pavilion, one of the great monumental architectural beauties of the world, Crash Craddock, the day before the fifth and final Ashes test between Australia and England, the pink test, always a big occasion here on the test calendar, even though yet again it is a dead rubber, or as dead as rubbers can get in the World Test Championship era. But all focus, Crash Craddock, has been on that area of turf out in the middle, the wicket at the SCG. What have you made of it? What are you expecting? And what's on the line this week for curator Adam Lewis?
Everything is on the line for Adam Lewis. This could define his short-term future. It's that serious in Sydney. It's been a difficult pitch for a lot of years. Now, it's a grassy deck. As we turn and look towards it, it's hard to tell it from the two wickets either side of it. So there's more grass on it than I thought they would, and it's made it difficult to choose a spinner, Todd Murphy. My sense is he'll probably get a game, Dan, but you wouldn't choose him with confidence on a wicket where Nathan Lyon averages 40 per test wicket.
It is extraordinary. 6 millimetres of grass, they say, are going to be left on it. I'm not sure if there's still a bit more to be shaved off. It's hard to tell in terms of depth of grass from our vantage point, and even the amount of mils can look different from one wicket to another because it's how it's spread across the wicket. I think there was very thatchy grass at the MCG last week. But the broader question about the idea that, for a long time it was, would Australia go in with two spinners at the SCG? Even occasionally, I think back to the 98-99 Ashes test here, when Colin Miller opened the bowling for Australia, and that was effectively 2.5 spinners. They went in with Warne and McGill, and Miller as an offie who can also bowl seam up with Glenn McGrath. But no spinners at the SCG? The game's gone, Crash Craddock. If this is what happens, then, to any kids watching this, and to be fair, this is pretty mature content between the two of us generally, but you wouldn't be wanting to bowl spin.
No, it shatters me. Richie Benaud, Stuart McGill, Bill O'Reilly had his stand named after him here. We're looking over it there now for his deeds here, and the wicket used to wear it. These days, wickets are so well looked after, they barely wear at all, which is so sad because the sight of a ball kicking out of the footmarks, it's basically gone out of cricket. And so to be a slow man these days, you've got to be very much on the spot. You don't spin it much. You don't give much away. But I'm sad because that's a big part of the game, and the amount of spin bowling overs in this series has been way, way, way too low for the satisfaction level of the common fan.
Not to mention it slows down the over rates significantly, which has been dire across the series. Not that there has been any shortage of action, be fair to say, there's been shortage of action because the matches haven't been going beyond 2 days. It did crack up quite a bit here in that Shield game between New South Wales and Victoria a few weeks ago, which was quite a controversial game. But yeah, you're right. It's nowhere near the spin haven that it once was. Look, so much of this test, particularly once England won in Melbourne, the sting went out of the whole 5-0 narrative. Obviously, the series was decided several weeks ago already in Adelaide. So I think leaving the selection and whether they pick a spinner or not to one side, the prevailing narrative of this test, the big storyline clearly is the farewell to Usman Khawaja. Was farewelled, confirmed farewell yesterday, Friday morning at the SCG. Crash, you were at the press conference. What did you make of it?
Well, I think he was like a cork out of a bottle. His inner emotions really came out. He spoke of a life of enormous racial challenges and racial sort of abuse. I think you can say that. He left people feeling uncomfortable. But here's the thing. I think that's how he wanted to leave people. I don't think he wanted people leaving there feeling, that was a nice little tied up the bow, wasn't it? He wants to be an acorn on your seat, and he certainly achieved that, Dan.
Yeah, beautifully put, Crash. I think he's a guy that for a long time, if you ask people even close to him, they say, he will always, he's not afraid to be confrontational. He's not afraid to make the question, make the statements, ask the questions, put forward the positions, plant the seeds that are not necessarily the cosy ones. They're not the motherhood statements that we might like, and the generalities that leave you feeling warm and fluffy inside. I mean, it's been interesting. The one, look, there are a few contentious, I suppose is probably the wrong word, but a few spicy topics in there. I suppose, and that's inherently the nature when you start talking about racism and the like. But I think the one thing that has been contentious was his remark around the infamous golf game in the lead up to the Perth Test, and how that's been construed, and his idea that criticism of the preparation was, I suppose, racially laden, and there were sort of racist tropes like lying beneath the surface. Now, I get that to a large degree, because there is a trope of a lazy brown black man. That is a thing. That's not made up. That has been a trope over a long period of time, and there is underlying racism. And I think Usman has, to a large degree, had to deal with that throughout his life and his career. Whether in this instance that was what was behind the criticism, I'm not sure. And Jason Gillespie, who one of only a handful of Indigenous men or women to play Test cricket for Australia on the ABC, effectively rejected that idea. What did you make of that particular controversial statement?
Yeah, I felt that was the one area which was most likely to come back at him. Not that it worry Usman, but I never sensed amongst his critics, that they were that was a racially motivated remark. It was more, as Gillespie said, the preparation of both teams was really under the microscope, particularly England.
Yes.
Like, everyone was looking at England and their slipshod preparation. So when Usman played golf and got injured, now some people thought it was an issue, some people didn't, but I have to say I didn't sense it, that it was racially motivated. But he is marked fairly hard, I have to say. There's a lot of people, Usman's only got a sneeze, and people say, we'll stay out of the cold. So he gets pretty heavily marked.
No, for sure. And as he acknowledged yesterday, I suppose because he has been not afraid to put his head above the parapet and make controversial remarks and delve into topics that are not line and length, for want of a better term. He has left himself open to that, and he's acknowledged that. But look, it would also be remiss not to. Really, we should focus on him, the cricketer. An exceptional career. Now, you can debate the point as to whether you're all-time great or not. That probably depends on how broadly you want to define all-time great. In any case, this is a guy who's averaged 43, 44 in Test cricket. It'll be his 88th Test, 16 Test centuries, done it across the world, and I think that his biggest legacy as a pure cricketer, this is a guy who has mastered Asian conditions, having been written off in the subcontinent early in his career.
Absolutely. Dropped in Pakistan, I remember, and they said he couldn't play spin. He went back to the nets, worked on his reverse sweep, and when he started, balls just flew everywhere. You know what I mean? Was ping up in the air or over there. And his averages in the subcontinent were absolutely outstanding in India, in Pakistan, and in Sri Lanka. So that was probably his greatest achievement. He was very good offshore after being poor offshore. And that's a good cricketer. Someone who will reinvent themselves by sheer determination.
This is a guy who has worked on his game for years, developed and turned into a very, very fine cricketer, and obviously famously 4 years ago to the week came back in serendipitous circumstances and turned it into this extraordinary second life as a player. To leave Usman for one moment, because there'll be plenty more talk about him throughout the next few days. Crash, as I said, 3-1, series decided a while ago, but what's at stake for England over the next 5 days?
So much, particularly Brendan McCullum. Now, here's the narrative. If they lose really badly here, he could be under threat for his job. If they have a respectable performance, he will stay. So it's not a dead rubber to him. And I think that, they jagged a win in Melbourne. It was an opportunistic victory. It was a bit of a throw at the stumps, and they got the stumps. But it was a win. And I think I'm hearing, Dan, that after this test, England's bosses will tell McCullum, we will keep you for a while. You're under contract for another year. But you're changing your backroom staff, and we're going to put people around you who are going to ask you questions you might not like. We want a tighter ship. We want... Michael Vaughan said, Bazball finds the 1%ers boring. And that's very insightful. all those little things that make a professional. Oh yeah, they'll be right. Well, they're not right. They're not working. So I like that idea of getting people around him who are the opposite to him.
It's the classic trope of sort of an underperforming. You've got two options when you've got particularly when they're under contract, and you've got a sort of a coach of a team that's underperforming. You either sack the coach or sack everyone around them.
Yeah.
And it does you feel as though they might err on the latter side, particularly given, and this is just the nature of the cricket landscape, there is a T20 World Cup in only a few weeks' time. Actually, I'll get you on that one. George Bailey, the Australian chairman of selectors, spoke to a few Aussie media early today, and how he was the strict instructions not to stray into topics related to the Ashes, but he was talking about the T20 World Cup squad, which I know is a few weeks away. What do you think of the idea of them not going in with a backup wicketkeeper and having Glenn Maxwell there to don the gloves if Josh Inglis falls over?
It's controversial, isn't it? He hasn't done much keeping in his life, has he? But look, he could probably do it, but it is a World Cup, I remember over the years, Australia, they took away guys who could occasionally keep, couldn't they? Like Justin Langer, was it
Yes.
Justin Langer?
Yep.
He did a little bit of wicket keeping. That sort of guy who, if need be, could do it. And these days, they're very common. That keeper who's given up keeping to be a specialist batsman. There's always some floating around, but this time there's not. So it's Maxwell. He's clever, he's skillful, but I'd hate to see him break a finger or something.
I mean, Glenn Maxwell has broken limbs in all manner of ways, this would be very on brand, actually. Not to mention, they probably need his. Now, what I'd love to see, not love because I don't want Josh Inglis to get hurt, but what would be very exciting is if Josh Inglis happens to miss a game, Glenn Maxwell keeps for 16 overs, but then bowls the other 4, and they have to find another keeper to bowl when Maxie's bowling. Anyway, you never know. That's still a few weeks away. We've got a big Ashes test in front of us. We look forward to bringing it all to you, and thanks for staying with us.